My name is Jake Harper, 38 years old, a retired military engineer after 15 years in the Middle East. In the Army, I learned to make traps from scraps, survive bombs, and stay calm when everything blew up. But after hanging up my boots, I just wanted a peaceful life where I could sit on the porch, sip coffee, and listen to cows grazing. So I poured all my savings into buying a 120-acre ranch in Serenity Springs, Florida, right on the edge of the Everglades. I dreamed of days raising cattle, tending chickens, and growing vegetables in the garden. No arguments, no drama. This ranch is my soul's medicine after years on the battlefield, where the sound of wind through the grass and the smell of hay make me feel alive again. My ranch is a treasure. An old but sturdy cattle barn, a small pond sparkling under the sun, a few silent birch trees, and a stillness so deep I can hear the hum of insects. I live with two four-legged friends, Boomer and Scout, two snow-white Great Pyrenees dogs who growl at anyone daring to approach the gate. Every morning, I step onto the porch, watch the cattle roam, and feel like I've found my place. No noisy neighbors, no traffic, no blaring horns. Just me, the ranch, and a simple dream. But I didn't expect I just bought a ticket to a storm, and that storm's name was Karen Wentworth. It started just a week after I moved in. One scorching noon, while I was wiping sweat and fixing a fence, a glossy white SUV screeched to a stop at the gate, so shiny it blinded me. On the door was a huge Cypress Grove HOA logo, like it was screaming trouble in my face. A woman stepped out, her hair dyed golden blonde, wearing sunglasses as big as plates, and a pricey business outfit that didn't belong in Florida's dust. She clutched a thick stack of papers, marching toward me with a fake smile that gave me chills. "I'm Karen Wentworth, president of the Cypress Grove Homeowners Association," she declared, her tone like she was bestowing a favor. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I stood there, hands still caked with dirt, forcing a polite smile. "Hello, ma'am. How can I help you?" Karen didn't bother with small talk. She glanced at my cattle barn like it had personally offended her, then shoved a stack of papers at me. "You violated multiple regulations, Mr. Harper," she said, her voice ice cold. I laughed, thinking I'd misheard. "Regulations? This is private land. I'm not part of any HOA." Karen slid her sunglasses down, glaring at me like I was a pesky insect. "Under the latest expansion plan, this ranch is now part of Cypress Grove, Subdivision B," she said, enunciating every word. "You have 30 days to comply." I was stunned, like she just demanded I hand over the whole ranch. "You're kidding, right? I bought this land from the Torres family. There's no Cypress Grove here." Karen didn't flinch. She thrust the papers into my hands, 25 pages of absurd rules like painting the barn pastel colors, reducing my chicken count, registering Boomer and Scout, and cutting down my birch trees because they disrupted the area's feng shui. "Noncompliance is a big mistake, Mr. Harper," she said, her tone like a death sentence. "Very big." Then she turned, climbed into her SUV, and left me standing there, feeling like I'd been slapped. After that encounter with Karen Wentworth, I tried to ignore her, thinking she was just a drama queen who'd tire of enforcing her nonsense rules. I was wrong. Karen wasn't the type to give up, and Cypress Grove HO was clearly more than a group of nosy neighbors. Just 2 weeks later, I realized I was facing a real war, and my ranch had become the target of dirty tricks I never could have imagined. It started one morning when I went to check on the cattle. I nearly froze when I saw the west fence sliced open, barbed wire scattered like trash. Half my herd, about 10 cows, had wandered onto the road, grazing on weeds between tire tracks. I rushed out with Boomer and Scout, herding them back, but one poor cow had been hit by a truck, lying motionless by the roadside. My heart sank. I called the local police, hoping they'd investigate. An officer came, took a few photos, shook his head, and said, "No evidence to track the culprit, Mr. Harper. Probably just kids messing around." I stared at him, swallowing my anger. Kids don't carry wire cutters for midnight pranks. I knew who was behind this, but I had no way to prove it. That night, while checking the fence, I found a note nailed to the barn door, scrawled in loopy handwriting on pink paper, Karen style. It read, "Comply or be evicted. This is your warning." I clenched the paper, feeling my blood boil. Karen wasn't just making empty threats. She was playing dirty, and I knew this was only the beginning. I decided to act. The next morning, I ordered a batch of security cameras and installed them across the ranch, on the barn, near the pond, along the fence. If Karen wanted to play cat and mouse, I'd make sure she was caught on tape. Less than a week later, trouble struck again. One afternoon, I went to check the vegetable garden and noticed the irrigation water smelled odd, sharp like chemicals. I ran to the tank near the pond and found dozens of fish floating, their eyes white and lifeless. Someone had dumped something into the tank, killing the fish and wilting my crops. I called the police again, but the officer just shrugged, called it an unfortunate accident, and suggested I lock the tank better. I stood there, staring at the dead pond, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Karen and her HOA had crossed the line from harassment to blatant sabotage. Then one morning, as I went to check the mailbox, it exploded the moment I opened the lid. A small blast, but enough to knock me back onto the ground. Metal shards lodged into my left arm, blood streaming down. I ended up in the hospital with 10 stitches. The police came, called it an unexpected accident, but I knew this was no coincidence. Karen had escalated from sabotage to personal attack. Sitting in the hospital, arm bandaged, I thought about the note on the barn, the poison pond, and the cow hit by a truck. This wasn't about fences or rules anymore. This was war. That's when I realized I couldn't keep playing nice. Karen Wentworth and Cypress Grove HOA had chosen the dirty path, and I wouldn't let them walk all over me. With my military engineering background, I knew how to turn my ranch into a fortress. I started planning, not just to protect my land, but to make Karen regret ever crossing a veteran. First, I needed to figure out what she really wanted and why my ranch was such a thorn in her side. I'll continue the story, because it's only starting to heat up. After the mailbox explosion, I realized Karen Wentworth and Cypress Grove HO weren't just busybodies. They were thugs in civilized clothing, ready to play dirty to get what they wanted. My ranch, the place I'd poured my sweat and heart into, was now a battlefield, and I wasn't about to let them steal it. With 10 stitches in my arm and rage boiling inside, I decided it was time to stop being nice. I wasn't just a cattle rancher. I was a former military engineer who'd built defense systems in the most dangerous zones. If Karen wanted war, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I started by beefing up security. First, I installed more cameras across the ranch, on the barn, along the fence, near the pond, and even on those birch trees Karen despised. These weren't cheap toys. They had night vision, audio, and linked straight to my phone. I wanted to catch every move the HOA made if they dared step foot here. Next, I set up tripwire alarms around the barn and main house. One wrong step, and they'd trigger a blaring siren loud enough to wake Boomer and Scout, my white-furred guards. I also trained the dogs with whistle commands, teaching them to patrol the ranch in circles when I signaled. Boomer, with his watermelon-sized head, looked scarier than any guard. But cameras and dogs weren't enough. I needed allies. I called Big Tony Russo, my army buddy, a bear of a man who was a genius with mechanics and always ready for trouble. Tony arrived the next day in his beat-up truck, loaded with tools. "Jake, who'd you piss off to get your mailbox bombed?" He chuckled, but his eyes were sharp as knives. I told him about Karen, the cut fence, the poison pond, and the threatening note. Tony nodded, rolling up his sleeves. "All right, let's turn this place into a fortress." What kind of HOA acts like the mafia? Around the same time, I met Mia Torres, a teenage neighbor a few miles away. Mia was a tech prodigy, always glued to her laptop and fond of hacking random stuff. She stopped by after hearing Boomer and Scout barking, curious about my cameras. When I told her about Karen, her eyes lit up. "I hate that Wentworth woman. Last year, she forced my parents to sell land because our orange grove was bad feng shui." Mia offered to help set up surveillance drones that could fly high and record crystal-clear video. I agreed instantly, feeling like I'd found an unexpected ally. With Tony and Mia, I started building defenses. Tony helped me craft non-lethal traps, motion-activated sprinklers hidden in the grass, triggered by footsteps, nets hung in the birch trees, ready to catch intruders, and speakers blasting bear or wolf growls, enough to make anyone tremble. Mia programmed the drones to patrol at night, sending alerts for any movement. I also ordered a batch of legal military-grade gear, paint pressure traps that sprayed colored powder and made a deafening noise but caused no harm. They were pricey, but worth every penny. I marked the ranch's perimeter with small flags, only I knew the safe paths. One night, the first alarm went off. Cameras caught 3 strangers sneaking in, carrying hammers and spray paint. As they touched the fence, the sprinklers drenched them head to toe. One slipped, screaming, while the speakers roared like a pack of wolves in the dark. All 3 bolted, leaving a hammer behind. I sat in the house, watching the video on my phone, chuckling. "Welcome to Harper Ranch, you rats." But I knew Karen wouldn't stop. She was testing me, and I had to be ready for dirtier tricks. I started digging into Cypress Grove HOA, and what I found chilled my blood. That's a story I'll tell next. After my water traps and growling speakers sent those intruders running, I thought Karen Wentworth might back off, or at least rethink her harassment. But I underestimated her stubbornness. Karen wasn't just a drama queen. She was a wrecking machine, and Cypress Grove HOA had more resources than I'd imagined. Just days after the failed break-in, I realized Karen had upped her game from sneaky sabotage to direct attacks. My ranch wasn't just a target anymore. It was a battlefield, and I had to prepare for a real war. It all exploded on a moonless night as I sat in the house reviewing camera footage. Suddenly, the alarms blared, and my phone buzzed with alerts from Mia's drone. I opened the app, heart pounding. Live footage showed 2 black vans parked on the dirt road leading to the ranch. 8 men in black gear, bulletproof vests, helmets, and sidearms, stepped out, moving in military formation. They weren't cops or regular security. These were mercenaries, swift, smart, and clearly well-trained. They split into 3 groups, heading for the barn, chicken coop, and tool shed, checking corners and disabling outdoor lights like they'd studied the layout. I slipped on a headset and climbed to the barn's attic, where I'd set up a hidden lookout. Through binoculars, I watched their every move. "Karen, you hired a SWAT team to trash my barn?" I muttered, unsure whether to be angry or amused. But I was ready for this. With my military engineering experience, I'd turned my yard into a nightmare maze for any intruder. I took a deep breath, flipped the remote control switch, and the battle began. The first group reached the barn, where I'd rigged growling speakers. As the leader stepped through the grass, a deafening roar erupted, paired with a bear's bellow. He fell backward, rolling into mud, yelling, "What the hell is that?" His team panicked, one dropping his flashlight. The second group, near the coop, triggered the paint traps. A burst of neon green powder sprayed them, coating 2 guys' faces, making them cough and curse wildly. I sat in the attic, stifling laughter, but my heart still raced. This wasn't a game. They were here to destroy, maybe worse. The third group was more dangerous. They approached the tool shed, where I stored machinery and seats. One started climbing a ladder to the side, clearly aiming for an upper window. I gripped the rope I'd rigged, waiting for the right moment. As he poked his head over the sill, I yanked hard. A heavy net, made of cable and farm netting, dropped, wrapping him tight. He screamed, flailed, then fell with a thud into a hay pile below, out cold. I whispered into my headset, 1 down, 7 to go. Boomer and Scout, guarding the barn, barked furiously, adding to the chaos. But then I saw headlights in the distance. A bigger, heavier black SUV rolled slowly down the dirt road. I adjusted my binoculars, and my heart stopped. Karen Wentworth stepped out, no longer holding papers but a handgun. She shouted at the mercenaries, "Find him now. Drag him out." I gritted my teeth. Karen didn't just want to wreck my ranch, she wanted to send a message. But she didn't know I'd prepared for this day. I'd started researching Cypress Grove HOA after the mailbox incident. Through calls and online digging, I learned they were tied to Horizon Ventures, a real estate company aiming to turn Serenity Springs into a luxury resort. My ranch was the last obstacle. To bolster my defenses, I contacted Sarah and Gwen, a local lawyer who'd been harassed by the HOA. Sarah agreed to help gather evidence, especially about fake permits Karen used to wield power. With Sarah, Tony, and Mia by my side, I knew I wasn't alone. But seeing Karen standing there, gun in hand, I knew this battle was just beginning. I needed a bigger plan, and I had an idea. I'll tell more, because things are about to get crazier. After Karen Wentworth's mercenaries were humiliated by my paint traps, nets, and growling speakers, I thought she'd have to back off. But Karen wasn't the type to feel shame. Seeing her standing there, gun in hand, shouting like she owned Serenity Springs, I realized she wouldn't stop until she had my ranch, or I made her a laughingstock. With Big Tony, Mia, and Sarah's help, I decided to take my defenses to a new level. If Karen wanted to play big, I'd give her a surprise Florida had never seen, a moat full of alligators. The moat idea hit me while fixing a fence with Tony. He joked, "You need something epic, like a medieval castle with a moat and dragons." I laughed, but then thought, why not? Florida's alligator country, and my ranch is near the Everglades, home to tons of preserves. I called Vince Carter, a wildlife conservationist I'd met at a farm fair. Vince agreed to loan 3 small alligators from his preserve, trained, non-aggressive ones that'd still scare anyone witless. Just get a permit from the wildlife agency. Call it a temporary conservation project. He winked. I did, and the permit was approved in days. With Tony and Mia, I started digging the moat. We used an excavator to carve a 2-meter deep, 3-meter wide trench around the barn and main house, channeling water from the nearby pond. Mia suggested adding color-changing LED lights and speakers with alligator growls for extra intimidation. I'll program the drone to play Wentworth's smug lines on repeat. She giggled. I named the alligators Chomper, Snappy, and Gatorade, the last one Tony's idea, since he said they were full of energy. Releasing them into the moat, I watched, half thrilled, half amused. Welcome to Fort Harper, Karen, I muttered. The chance to test the moat came sooner than expected. One night, Mia's drone spotted a small boat sneaking through the pond, heading for the ranch's edge. I checked the monitor, and sure enough, Karen Wentworth, in a black coat, stood on the boat with her assistant Chad Baxter, holding a flashlight and iPad. Clearly, she thought she could sneak in from the back to avoid traps. I turned on the speakers, letting alligator growls echo. Chomper, sensing the drama, swam near the moat's edge, eyes glinting under the LEDs. Karen freaked, screaming, "What is that?" "Alligators." Chad, in a panic, dropped the iPad into the water, then tried to row away. The boat flipped, dumping both into the muddy water, soaked and filthy. I hit live stream on the drone, and the video racked up hundreds of views in minutes. Netizens dubbed Karen Queen of the Capsize and left tons of mocking comments. But the fight wasn't just for laughs. Sarah, my lawyer, dug deeper into Cypress Grove HOA and uncovered a bombshell. Beneath my ranch lay a rare aquifer, which Horizon Ventures, Karen's backers, wanted to tap for their luxury resort. "This isn't just about land, Jake," Sarah said, showing me documents. "They want your water, and they'll do anything to get it." I clenched my jaw. Karen didn't just want my barn. She wanted to steal my future. I knew a moat and alligators wouldn't be enough to win. I started planning to expand defenses while sending the capsized Karen video to Lila Brooks, a young journalist Mia knew online. Lila promised to spread the story. Meanwhile, I sensed Karen was gearing up for a bigger move. She'd failed with mercenaries and boats, but her eyes that night, full of rage and resolve, told me she wasn't done. I had to be ready, because the next battle wouldn't be a joke. I'll keep going, because things are only heating up. After Karen Wentworth and Chad Baxter's pathetic boat flip in my pond, the live stream went viral, making Karen the laughingstock of Serenity Springs. Netizens called her Mud Queen, and memed Chomper, my star alligator, wearing a crown. I thought Karen would lay low to lick her wounds, but I forgot her ego was bigger than the Everglades. Instead of retreating, she went all in, and this time, she didn't bring mercenaries or boats. She brought bulldozers, intent on flattening my barn as a final declaration of war. It all started on a sweltering afternoon when Mia's drone spotted a strange convoy on the dirt road leading to the ranch. I checked the monitor, heart pounding. 3 massive bulldozers, painted bright yellow, rolled slowly, followed by 2 black SUVs and a white van with a Cypress Grove HOA logo. A large sign on the van read, "Area Redevelopment, authorized by Cypress Grove." Karen stepped out of an SUV, wearing an expensive business suit, oversized sunglasses, and a smug smile like she'd already won. Chad followed, holding an iPad, filming as usual. I muttered, "You really think bulldozers will get past my alligator moat, Karen?" I immediately called Big Tony, who was fixing an excavator in the shed, and Mia, who was controlling the drone from the living room. "We've got company," I said through my headset. "Get everything ready." Tony chuckled. "Let's see how Chomper and Snappy handle this." Mia activated the drone, blasting Karen's voice repeating, "This is a big mistake, Mr. Harper," from our first meeting, both to taunt and confuse the bulldozer crew. I climbed to the barn's attic, where I had a full view. The alligator moat glimmered under the LED lights, and I knew Karen was about to learn a hard lesson. The first bulldozer approached the barn, but as it rolled over the grass, my paint trap triggered. A cloud of neon pink powder sprayed, coating the bulldozer's windshield. The driver panicked, stopped, and yelled, "What the hell is this?" Karen, standing a few meters away, screamed, "Keep going. Don't stop." But then Mia's drone swooped in, blasting alligator growls mixed with Karen's voice, throwing the crew into chaos. The second bulldozer tried to advance but hit the moat area. Snappy swam close, eyes glinting, making the driver abandon the machine and run, leaving it stuck in the mud. Chad, filming, slipped into a mud puddle, his iPad flying into the moat. Karen, purple with rage, stomped her foot, knocking off her sunglasses. I started the drone's live stream, and the video racked up thousands of views. Netizens commented wildly, "Karen versus alligators, 0-2. I sat in the attic, stifling laughter, but knew the battle wasn't over. Karen stood there, yelling at the bulldozer team, "You're paid to work, not run." Then she glared at the barn, like she knew I was watching. "This is a big mistake, Harper," she shouted. I hit the speaker to reply, "You're trespassing on private land, Wentworth. Leave now." I emphasized private land, because Sarah had found a key detail. Part of my ranch was under federal agricultural use, meaning Karen was breaking the law without a court order. Meanwhile, Sarah sent me more info. She discovered Cypress Grove HO was a front for Horizon Ventures, the company after the aquifer under my ranch to supply their resort. Karen was bribed to force me to sell, and her redevelopment permits were fake. I passed this to Lila Brooks, the young journalist investigating the case. Lila promised to publish, but I knew we needed more evidence to take Karen down. Right after the bulldozer fiasco, Ethan, a disgruntled HOA employee, contacted me. He revealed Karen threatened to fire him for refusing to forge documents. Ethan sent me internal files proving Karen and Horizon Ventures bribed local officials. I felt the tide turning, but Karen wasn't out of tricks. She'd failed with mercenaries, boats, and bulldozers, but her furious glare said she was planning something bigger. I had to prepare, because next time, she wouldn't come with bulldozers, she'd bring an army. I'll keep going, because things are about to get crazier. After the bulldozer debacle, with Karen Wentworth falling in the mud and Chad Baxter losing his iPad to the alligator moat, my ranch became the talk of the town. The live stream I posted went viral, racking up tens of thousands of views overnight. Netizens dubbed Karen Mud Queen, and memed Snappy, my MVP alligator, fleeing in terror. I thought Karen would slink away to nurse her wounded ego, but I forgot she was the embodiment of arrogance. Instead of giving up, Karen and Cypress Grove HO went quiet, like a predator stalking prey. I knew she was plotting something bigger, and I had to act before her next move. The viral video didn't just bring laughs. It drew attention from unexpected allies. Lila Brooks, the young journalist Mia introduced, called me right after watching it. "Jake, this is gold," Lila said over the phone, voice buzzing with excitement. "Your story could expose a whole corruption ring. I want to interview you." I agreed, and Lila came to the ranch the next day, bringing a camera and a long list of questions. She interviewed me in front of the barn, with Boomer and Scout sprawled nearby, like they wanted to be on TV. I told her everything from my first meeting with Karen, the cut fence, the poison pond, to the bulldozer stunt. Lila recorded every detail, promising to publish in the local paper and pitch to major outlets. But Lila wasn't the only one drawn in. Thanks to the video, I started getting messages from all over. Veterans across Florida, some who'd fought beside me, texted they were ready to help. Local farmers, harassed by the HOA, called to share their stories. Even a group of young environmental activists reached out, wanting to protect the ranch's rare aquifer. I decided to rally everyone. If Karen wants war, I'll bring an army, I told Tony and Mia. I posted a call on social media, inviting anyone who wanted to fight injustice to the ranch. The response was beyond my wildest expectations. Days later, my ranch turned into a festival. Pickup trucks, motorcycles, even RVs rolled in, clogging the dirt road. Veterans and old fatigues held signs saying "Protect our land." Sunburned farmers raised boards reading "Hands off the ranch." Environmental activists set up tents, live-streamed the event, and blasted megaphones calling to save the aquifer. We lit campfires, shared coffee, and swapped stories of HOA bullying. I stood on the porch, watching the crowd, feeling like I wasn't alone anymore. From a farmer to a movement leader, Tony grinned, clapping my shoulder. Karen, of course, didn't sit still. She held an emergency HOA meeting, live-streamed on social media, calling me a community threat and accusing me of disrupting order. She even hired a PR team to smear me, posting that I illegally kept alligators and harmed the environment. But she didn't expect Lila and Ethan, the disgruntled HOA worker. Ethan sent me more internal documents, proving Karen took bribes from Horizon Ventures to force farmers to sell. Lila used them to write an expose, published locally, and sent to CNN. A CNN drone started circling the ranch, filming our campfires and signs. Karen tried to hit back by erecting wooden walls around Horizon Ventures land, blocking drone views. But Mia, with her hacking genius, flew a drone over the walls, capturing footage of Horizon workers illegally drilling for the aquifer. That video, paired with Lila's article, piled pressure on Karen. Florida's governor spoke out, promising to review Serenity Springs land permits. I knew Karen was panicking, but her furious glare in the HOA live stream told me she wasn't done. She was planning a final blow, and I had to be ready. With the community by my side, I felt stronger than ever, but I knew the next fight would be the decider. I'll keep going, because things are only heating up. The community's involvement turned my ranch into a symbol against injustice, but I knew Karen Whitworth wasn't one to give up easily. After Lila Brooks' expose and Mia's drone video shook Cypress Grove HOA, Karen was cornered. The governor's statement and media pressure left her no escape. But her furious glare in the HOA live stream haunted me. I sensed she was planning a final strike, and this time, she wouldn't bring bulldozers or regular mercenaries. She wanted to end it, no matter the cost. I told Tony and Mia, get ready, the biggest battle's coming. To prepare, Tony and I fortified the ranch like a fortress. We added more paint traps, set up new nets, and upgraded the alligator moat with louder growling speakers. Mia programmed the drones for 24/7 patrols, sending instant alerts for any odd movement. Sarah, my lawyer, sent Karen's bribery evidence to the Bureau of Land Management, and Lila kept publishing exposés, putting Horizon Ventures in the media crosshairs. The community, veterans, farmers, activists stayed, camping around the ranch, ready to face any threat. The final attack came on a moonless night, with Florida's air heavy with mud and wet grass. Mia's drone screamed, and the monitor showed 5 black SUVs parked under trees 2 miles from the ranch. Over 20 men in tactical gear, armed with handguns and metal cutters, moved silently toward the fence. Behind them were 2 bulldozers, now steel-plated, and a white van with a banner, Land Reclamation, authorized by Cypress Grove. Karen stepped out of the van, in a black coat, holding a megaphone. Jake Harper, she shouted. Your time's up. I climbed to the barn's attic, headset on, watching through binoculars. She brought an army, I whispered to Tony over the radio. He, at the tool shed, replied, let Chomper and Snappy say hi. I triggered the traps. The first bulldozer smashed through the fence, splintering wood like toothpicks. But as it rolled over the grass, paint traps sprayed bright red powder, blinding the windshield. The driver panicked, stopping. Mia's drone swooped, blasting Karen's voice. This is a big mistake, Harper, throwing the bulldozer team into disarray. The second bulldozer hit the moat, and Snappy swam close, making the driver abandon ship. Karen screamed, cowards. Move. But then I heard a strange beep from the house camera. A sensor I hadn't expected was triggered. I checked the monitor, heart-stopping, movement inside the house, near the bedroom. Someone had slipped in, and not through the front door. They knew the safe paths, avoiding the moat and traps. I slid down the ladder, feet burning, sprinting across the yard, staying low to avoid detection. Boomer and Scout barked frantically by the barn. I slipped into the basement storage, using a secret tunnel I dug weeks ago, leading to the kitchen. I killed my flashlight, moving through the dark by memory. At the pantry, I heard heavy footsteps upstairs. One person, combat boots, moving slowly. I grabbed a flare gun from the tool shelf, non-lethal but enough to temporarily blind. I climbed the stairs, each step creaking. At the bedroom door, I saw light through the crack. I kicked it open. A woman stood in the middle, in black, wearing a body cam, rifling through my papers. Her badge read, Enforcement Officer, Cypress Grove HOA. She turned, startled but calm. Jake Harper, she said, voice cold. Who are you, and why are you in my house? I asked, raising the flare gun. She raised her hands, smirking. I'm here to collect evidence. That's all. I scoffed. Evidence? You just committed burglary. She replied, you're defying HOA authority. We own half the officials in this county. I stepped closer, voice firm. I've got cameras, audio, and documents sent to my lawyer, the press, and 3 veteran groups. Want to walk out, or be dragged when the cops arrive? She glared but backed toward the door. You'll regret this, she muttered. I shot back. No, I think you will. Just then, the front door burst open. Jake, a familiar voice called. Sheriff Daniels here. I exhaled. Daniels and 2 deputies appeared, cuffing the woman and leading her out. In the yard, federal agents, led by Special Agent Rachel Kim, arrived after getting evidence from Sarah and Lila. Karen was cuffed, face pale, glaring at me like she could kill. I stared back, radiate fearless. The battle wasn't over, but I had the upper hand. I'll keep going, because things are about to get intense. After that chaotic night with bulldozers, the alligator moat, and the intruder hauled off by cops, my ranch finally settled back into quiet. Karen Wentworth, pale-faced and ego-shattered, was cuffed and loaded into a police car under the feds' flashing lights. Special Agent Rachel Kim stood on my porch, giving me a firm handshake. "You're lucky you weren't hurt, Jake," she said, eyes glinting with respect. I shrugged, smiling wearily. "I'm lucky I have friends." Rachel nodded at Tony, standing by the tool shed with Boomer and Scout, like she was saying, "You train this crew well." Rachel revealed that evidence from Sarah, Lila, and Ethan, plus my live stream videos, gave enough for a federal investigation into Cypress Grove HOA and Horizon Ventures. Karen faced charges of fraud, bribery, and trespassing, while Horizon Ventures was hit with lawsuits for land manipulation. "We'll issue arrest warrants by noon," Rachel said. "Karen and her company are done." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Good," I replied, "because I'm not going anywhere." The days after moved fast. Florida's governor announced a review of land laws to protect farmers from takeover schemes. My ranch was designated an agricultural preservation area, immune to HOA or real estate tricks. The Department of the Interior offered to buy conservation rights for unused land, but I'd keep ownership. "I'll think about it," I said, but in my heart, I knew, this is my home, forever. To celebrate, I threw an outdoor party in the pasture. Tony brought beer, Mia brought a Bluetooth speaker, Sarah and Lila swapped jokes, and Vince, the alligator guy, came to take Chomper, Snappy, and Gatorade back to his preserve. The community, veterans, farmers, activists gathered around campfires, sharing coffee and stories. Lila published her final exposé, calling me the farmer hero, racking up millions of views. I stood on the porch, watching everyone, feeling like I'd found a new family after all the fighting. As a memento, I placed a giant stuffed alligator on the porch named Chomper Jr. Every time I see it, I recall those crazy days, the cut fence, poison pond, and Karen flopping in the mud. I fought not just for my ranch, but for the right to live in peace. As the sun set, painting the pasture gold, I sat with Tony, Boomer curled at my feet. "What if Karen comes back?" Tony asked, sipping beer. I laughed. "She'll meet Chomper Jr., and this time, I'm not joking." We clinked bottles, savoring the victory. But deep down, I knew this story changed me and Serenity Springs forever. Sitting on the porch, watching the pasture glow under moonlight, I still can't believe I survived the storm named Karen Wentworth. From cut fences, poison ponds, to bulldozers and mercenaries, my ranch became a battlefield, and I, a simple farmer, won. Karen now faces prison, Cypress Grove HOA is dissolved, and Horizon Ventures is under federal investigation. My ranch, with its weathered barn and legendary alligator moat, is now an agricultural preservation area, safe forever. Chomper Jr., the stuffed alligator on the porch, stands as a victory monument, reminding me of those wild days. This war taught me a big lesson. Sometimes, one person saying no can shake an unjust system. I didn't do it alone. Tony, Mia, Sarah, Lila, Vince, and the Serenity Springs community stood with me. They're proof that unity can beat any Karen, no matter how many bulldozers she brings. I thank the Reddit community, where I found inspiration to share this story. Posts about arrogant Karens made me laugh till I cried and pushed me to tell my journey. Now I ask you, if an HOA Karen tried to wreck your barn, what would you do? Dig an alligator moat like me, or got a crazier trick? Comment below. Share your story. If you liked this tale, from paint traps, taunting drones, to Snappy scaring Karen senseless, upvote to let me know. Karen may be down, but I bet there are more Karens out there waiting to be taken down. If she dares come back, Chomper Jr. and I are ready. Reddit, what do you think? Thanks for following my wild story with Karen and the alligator moat. Subscribe to the channel to catch the next battles at Serenity Springs Ranch. See you with more HOA drama, and who knows, maybe Chomper Jr. will get a new buddy.